I'm not favoring these Trump economic policies of tariffs. But Trump, there's no doubt about it, Trump thinks tariffs are a tool. He's using these tariffs with fentanyl or other issues that he wants to
weaken China. I mean, in
well,
terms
or
of
maybe negotiate with China.
Since you talk about this trade war, there was an example in your book. I remember the President Hoover. He waged a trade war back in last century 30s, brought the United States into a disaster. But there were plenty of examples that trade war would not help anybody. They feel the tariff trade war would help U.S. economy.
What you are underscoring is people have different historical reference points. So as you properly mentioned, there was a tariff act of 1930, the Smoot-Hawley tariff, that raised the average U.S. tariff to 59%.
Wow.
And it was a disaster. Now, the U.S. had a trade surplus, so if you want to have a trade surplus, we had a trade surplus, but we also had unemployment of 25%. And it contributed to the collapse of the international system in the 30s, and whether it was Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, and the breakdown of the international security order. For many years, Americans had that as their reference point, just as you were saying. But I think for more recent generations, they've had other reference points. So for example, after World War II, the early 1970s, the United States was by far the most dominant economy. But as Europe came back, as Japan came back, in the 1970s, you remember, we had the energy price shocks. And so many of the traditional industries was called the Rust Belt. They struggled. Right? And so I think part of the issue is that people have more recent reference points about the dangers, as they saw it, of the economic disruption of the 70s and 80s. Then this is where the issue of China comes in. As China grows in the international economy, it becomes a larger force. And for some people, farmers, this was good. They were selling more to China. But for others in the lower end manufacturing, it was hard. So now there's another reference point. So your point is really important in that in dealing with politics of these issues, it's important to have a sense of what's the historical reference point. So let me try to apply this in China's case. The amazing thing about China is that people within their own lifespan will have seen this amazing increase in terms of living standards. But as China's economy slows, then people may become less certain. My guess is, even though living standards are much better, there's an uncertainty created because people are now worried, well, do they have to save for their elderly parents? Can they afford to have a child and work? So in a way, whether it's the US or Japan or others, some of these phenomenon, I think, will also affect China. For a while, people will say, this system helped us grow and change our life. But as it slows down, you'll have to deal with the politics of those issues.
What's in his mind, the logic, he is trying to make U.S. Great again. By doing that, by raising taxes, not to China, I mean to everybody. I mean his neighbors, I mean Canada, Mexico, all of that. Probably next time he's going to do it to Europe. I mean.
And so, again, I'm not favoring these Trump economic policies of tariffs. But Trump, there's no doubt about it, Trump thinks tariffs are a tool. He's using these tariffs with fentanyl or other issues that he wants to
weaken China. I mean, in
well,
terms of
or maybe negotiate with China.
I have other set of numbers. I mean, U.S. Used to have Oliver-shaped society structure. Very good, big middle class guys. But after these 20, 30 years, now it's a pyramid with a very small number, like 5 to 10% of people owning the whole wealth of like 70, 80%. And the middle class guys, I mean, they don't have wage increase or wealth increase for some 20, 30 years. That's what I heard from your economists. We're sort of being taken advantage of. Is that true?
That is the anxiety and mood that President Trump was taking advantage of politically. The sense of upheaval. I personally think the story is somewhat different. If you look at living standards in the United States, you've actually tended to see is if you divide incomes into quintiles, into 5 parts, The middle one has tended to move up. The top one has done a lot better because of financial assets.
Okay.
So with all the monetary policies, stock markets have gone up. And so if you own financial assets, you're a lot richer. If you don't, haven't had the benefit of that. The bottom fifth has also actually moved up, but the fourth group, I think in some ways is the one that is frustrated, because the bottom group is now moving up with it, but the fourth group is not moving up. So these are people that perhaps had less education, less training, maybe single parents, drug use, which is one of the other things that Trump is sort of focusing on, health problems. So you're right that a society has to take care of all of its people, but my own view is that by raising barriers, by making goods more costly, you're not going to help those people.